This is TWiT. If you watch the Major League Baseball playoffs, if you watch NFL football, you cannot miss this kooky, and forgive me, Christina, for saying it, kooky Microsoft Windows 11 ad. It's kooky. That's all I can say.
It is. It's pretty.
It's artsy.
It brings you closer to the things you love. That's the tagline, huh? Oh, I love Master Chief. So Windows 11 came out on October 5th. That was a Tuesday. It wasn't like Windows 95, Start Me Up. It wasn't even like Windows 7. There were, no parties celebrating the arrival of Windows 11. It kind of just, and there was no hummingbird, I might add, either. Daniel, was Windows 11 a big deal this week?
The idea of an operating system being updated, I think, is just not a big deal anymore. Apple has kind of proven this point by every year updating.
They do it every year.
Almost. Yeah, and Android got on that as well. And people are just so used to, probably sick of operating system updates, that this is not really a big deal in that sense. Not where, Windows 95 was big because the computers were still pretty new, but that was right at the point where they were starting to get big. And that's right also, Windows 95, its core feature was about the internet, right? And there was so much potential around that. And this is going to allow you to get on the internet easier because it was pretty difficult and weird at that point to get on the internet. So it doesn't quite have that impact. After all,
it's like you were saying about phones, right? We've reached peak operating systems. What are you going to do that's going to be so different?
Exactly. So sure, they updated the UI. It looks more modern and fresher. They did a lot of optimizations. It's built around more security, which I think is really a bigger story that people don't like talking about because security is boring.
When you say that, is that the TPM requirement, the TPM 2.0 requirement, or is there other?
That, as well as the modern processors.
You have to have 8th generation or later.
Execution exploits. The idea here, I would say Windows has a couple problems in terms of image, right? One of them is stability. Another one is security. And the other one's complexity. So this update addresses all of that stuff. When it comes to security, now it requires TPM, it requires modern processors, stuff on the motherboard that helps prevent injection between when the operating system is actually booting up.
Right.
And that's boring, and sometimes it angers people. But it's super important when we're getting to different types of malware and, hijacking people's computers. It's very important for them to address that. After all, I've seen a lot of Google Chrome commercials for Chromebook where they're like, you don't need a virus scanner.
Yeah, same thing.
Because it's still, it's still fun to go after Microsoft for security.
Right.
Same thing when it comes to stability, right? Blue screen of death is hilarious because it's a cultural meme at this point, which is insane.
Yeah.
But when you look at the numbers between the, going by what Microsoft says, right, that 99% of the computers with the modern hardware running Windows 11 have a crash-free experience. And that's the way it should be. But they can't do that.
They say 99%, but they didn't say what that number was for Windows 10. Could it have been 98.9%?
It could have, probably wasn't.
Okay.
I think is the point. Windows 11 is, if you're running it on the, approved or recommended hardware,
it's more reliable in your
experience. Very stable.
Okay.
I would actually argue, and that's...
It's been stable for a while, though. Windows 10 the blue screen of death kind of went away, right? Mostly.
Yeah, it was still kind of there. They were supporting a lot of very old hardware with Windows 10, and now they're actually making that demarcation.
That's one way to get rid of them. Yeah. Stop supporting core duos.
Yeah. And I would say also that's kind of the other story this week, which was it was kind of boring not because there weren't celebrations, because I didn't have to write a bunch of stories talking about this is broken, this is crashed, this isn't working for people. Sure, there's the AMD story, 3 to 5% maybe reduction in performance on very specific applications and maybe in gaming. And that's going to be fixed in a couple of weeks. But that's not the same as people's, computers being wiped or losing data, things being locked out or crashing. Like, it's actually been a boring week in terms of major bugs with Windows 11, which I think speaks to all this work that they put into making Windows a little bit more modern.
That's actually a little surprising because the beta releases were somewhat buggy. I think Paul Thurrott was saying, I'm worried that this Windows 11 release is premature. But
it had a major bug just a couple weeks ago that was took away people's start the taskbar.
Right.
You couldn't do it.
That's not good.
Right.
But we haven't seen anything like that this week.
No.
That's good news.
Nope.
Tell me about the Ryzen. Tell me about the Ryzen issue. Who does that affect?
So this is very, first of all, AMD users are still a minority of users in general. So it's a certain percentage of them. And the effect appears to be a 3 to 5%, less than 3 to 5% reduction in performance in specific applications / some games.
And why?
That's it.
Do we know why?
It has to do with the L3 memory. It has to do with memory and the architecture of AMD's chips. It's going to be addressed in a couple of weeks, apparently. But it's not a security vulnerability. Most people aren't going to notice it. It's just, I think, more of a tidying up kind of bug. It's surprising they missed it during the beta, testing period. So I'm sure people will go back and look at what happened.
Only reason I'm asking is because I run a Ryzen 5900 on my own computer, so I'm just curious. Actually, and
if you're a hardcore gamer who streams on Twitch, you may want to hold back.
Yeah, so. No, I notice a little. I don't notice any difference. It seems the same. But I'm playing Valheim, which is not exactly the most challenging game ever.
There you go.
I stream it on Twitch, and thanks to the big Twitch breach, I'm streaming to a lot more people than ever before.
Yes.
We'll talk about that in a little bit. Okay, so Christina, did you put Windows 11 on your brand new framework, or did you put Windows 10 on?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh no. I've been running 11 since I've been on internal stuff, I guess, since like May, and
you're the insider's insider. You're really inside.
Yeah. And obviously I haven't worked on the product or anything, but I was, just as a disclosure, I was involved with the developer launch event that happened back in June, and I have great respect for the Windows team, but I don't work on Windows. But yeah, no, I've been running it, I guess, for almost 6 months at this point, and I love it. Like, I love the UI changes. It was interesting going through like the dev process and seeing how things were being added back and how, more features were being refined. Obviously, this is still, I think, just kind of like a work in progress, kind of like Windows 10 didn't come, like there were...
All software is.
Windows 10,
that's the new
at this
thing.
Point, yeah.
No software ships done. And it started with gaming. Right. It started with, actually, Mary Jo Foley said, no, it started with Google, with Gmail, which was in beta for a decade. Software isn't done anymore. It ships, and then there are many, many patches over a period of time as it gets better and better. But 11 seems fairly stable. I think it's beautiful. I have to say.
I love the look.
I like it. I don't mind the centered menu. They need to do a little work, and I'm sure will, on the start menu. The recents thing is a little, or whatever they call it, recommend, is a little big, but there's little things like that, and I'm sure StarDock will allow you to tweak it. Jim Salter, and you would expect this from Jim in Ars Technica, says the best part of Windows 11, Linux.
WSL2. Absolutely. No, but WSL2 is amazing. Like, but a huge part of this, Windows Terminal is now installed by default.
Oh, that's so much better terminal than the old CMD terminal. This is so much better.
But it's so good. But also installing WSL is super easy now. You just type in WSL -- install, and it enables everything for you. So even getting that enabled now is super easy. It's easy to get the Windows Package Manager installed, which is basically like the Windows version of Homebrew, essentially.
Oh, so I don't need to use chocolatey anymore. There's a package manager.
You still can. You still, but there is a package manager, and what's cool about it is it's actually tied to the Windows Store, but also non-Windows Store apps can be packaged that way too. But you can install. I mean, it's in a lot of ways just a CLI for the Windows Store, but also for other things that want to package that way. Chocolatey still has some advantages for certain types of NuGet and maybe dev things, but I can do a lot of stuff with the Windows Package Manager now, and I love it. Power Toys, which is an add-on you can get, and it's open sourced, adds even more, kind of good stuff for people who are more like dev-centric, kind of nerdy users,
right? Like your users, yeah. And everybody, I think most of the audience on this show, there's a lot of really good stuff with this, and the Windows subsystem for Linux, which Jim Salter mentioned, one of the big things, and this will be coming to Windows 10 as well, but it's already
already in the stuff that's in Windows 11 is the early support for graphical apps within WSL. So if you wanted to run Firefox installed from Ubuntu or another distro, you could. Or if there was another GUI app that for whatever reason you wanted to run, you could do that.
That's actually
and
huge.
It works really well.
And you don't have to go through installing X window ahead of time. You just install the GUI app and it works.
Exactly. There are some limitations and there's some things that aren't quite there yet. That's obviously the teams are working hard on that, but there's a lot of opportunity there. One of the interesting things in that case is when it comes to CUDA workflows. So CUDA is NVIDIA's proprietary kind of technology that most data scientists and a lot of other big workloads use. And a lot of people really like to use CUDA stuff, but they would want to be able to use that kind of on the Linux side to use their GPU power, and you can have the pass through and do a lot of CUDA stuff within WSL, which is really powerful for a lot of engineers. So that support again is still becoming enhanced, and NVIDIA has added driver support and stuff like that. But it's the opportunities there, I think. I love WSL. It's one of my favorite features, the last few years that it's been available. And I use it all the time. And the newest versions and the GUI stuff, I think, for people who you have games and maybe you have some apps, or you like the interface, the security, whatever the case may be, you like the Windows operating system better. But if you're doing dev work, you would really like to be in a Linux environment. The way that it's coming together now makes it much more seamless. And I think really good.
You'll be glad to know Jim Salter installed it on a Framework laptop.
Oh, yeah. I'm not surprised.
Before the show, we were talking about how much Christina and I love our Frameworks, the Right to Repair laptop.